All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We want to keep our schedule as well as we can. If the first little bit we're going to be doing some introduction, so people come in a few minutes late, they'll be able to keep up with us. Welcome to this webinar about CodeMonkey's Game Builder application. CodeMonkey has lots of great applications and resources, but Game Builder is my favorite because it's open-ended and lets you build your own games. And so that's the reason I'm talking to you about that this afternoon. Please stay in touch with us after the webinar by following us at CodeMonkeySTU on Twitter. We also have a Facebook page you can search for us, and you can access our blog on our main page, www.codemonkey.com. I am Jay Bloodworth. I am the curriculum developer here at CodeMonkey. I've been in that position for about 6 months. Before that, I was a school teacher for 20 years. So I do write lots of lesson plans and things like that. And I have some of my coworkers with me to help facilitate this webinar. Let's start with Mark. Mark, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. As Jay said, and as you can see there, my name is Mark Dozier. I am a customer success manager and support associate at CodeMonkey. Also, like Jay, this is my favorite part of CodeMonkey. So I think you guys will enjoy what he has to share with you today. Thanks, Jay.
Yep. And Livnat?
Hi, I'm the content developer of CodeMonkey. I've been with the company for almost 4 years. And what I do is actually develop the courses that we have, the challenges. So I hope you enjoy this webinar.
All right. And Lena is going to introduce herself and share a few guidelines for this afternoon's webinar.
Hello, my name is Lena Saleh, and I'm the Professional Development Manager at CodeMonkey. I've been with the company for almost 2 years now, and before that I taught in the classroom for about 10. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Some things that we kind of want to go over before starting our webinar today is that when you are sharing some comments and things in both our Q&A and our chat box, it's just remembering that we are still in a school type of setting, so using appropriate language and that kind of a thing. Unfortunately, if you're not able to use the appropriate language, we will have to remove you from our webinar today. So just making sure you're following those guidelines, and once you are, we'll be able to have a really great webinar, and you're going to be learning a lot from Jay today. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you to Lena and Mark and Livnat. If I get a little bit carried away with my teaching and game building this afternoon, they're going to be watching the chat and the Q&A to make sure that I don't miss any of your questions, so I can address anything that you need to ask. So hopefully you already know a little bit about CodeMonkey. We are a game-based learning platform for teaching coding. I think coding is fun no matter how you do it, but we find that making a game out of it makes it more fun for beginners sometimes. But as I've said before, while many of our products are about playing a game in order to learn to code, today we're going to be writing and creating our own game and learning to code that way. So that is even better. So our agenda for this afternoon, introduction, which we've pretty much already done. Talk just a little bit about some big ideas in game design. And then the main event's gonna be what is called a game jam. Game jam is usually an event where a bunch of coders get together in maybe small teams and work to create a game very quickly in a few hours from scratch. We're going to do sort of a modified game jam. I am going to be leading it and kind of writing most of the code myself with maybe a little bit of input from you guys. And I've cheated a little bit, and then I've planned this out in advance, some more than you might see in a traditional game jam. But still, it is going to be a very rapid game development process. You're going to see how powerful the game builder platform is to let you do that. And at the end, we'll do some questions and answers, and throughout, I will try and pause when I can to answer your questions if they come up in the middle as well. Just a couple of quick things. So we're doing Game Builder. There's the logo. We're going to be doing the Game Builder application, which is completely open-ended, but CodeMonkey does have 3 courses that go along with Game Builder. So if you find that I move a little bit too quickly this afternoon for you, you can go and do one or all of these courses, and they will cover most of these concepts in more detail. Those are Platformers, Sprite Animations, and Frogger. And in just a second, you're actually going to see this live. This is some screenshots from the Game Builder platform. Excuse me. So you will know what to expect when we get in there. So let's actually go ahead and do that now. So I would like to invite you to follow along with me. Hopefully I'm going to move at a pace that you can do and write the code that I'm writing. If I'm going too quickly, ask me to slow down. But even if you have trouble keeping up, the point of this is really for you to learn how to write your own game, not just to duplicate my game. So it's most important for you to get in the big ideas rather than just copying down exactly what I create. So if you get a little bit lost, that's okay. There'll be plenty of time for you to make your own game on your own, and that represents what you like. But let's try and do one together today. So if you will go to www.codemonkey.com, our main website. I'll give you a second to get there. And we're going to go to login. And you may have your own username and password if you are already working with CodeMonkey. But if you don't, if you're new to this, you can use webinar2 as both the username and password here. So webinar2.
Actually, I apologize. The is Zoom 42.
I'm sorry. You told me that, and I forgot to correct that.
That's all right.
So Zoom
I'm putting
42
that in there for you guys.
and Zoom 42. Again, both username and password. And you can go ahead and click login. I'm just going to wait just a moment to make sure people are with me. And you can choose if you like. I'll skip over that for right now. And when you come here, there are lots of things that are available, but most of these are locked because this username and password was just designed for using Game Builder. You scroll down where we see Creativity and Game Builder, and we'll select that. And we can go ahead and click on Start Coding. So before we get into it, let's stop and look at this for a second. There are some options here that give you some pre-built games or some games that are at least starting points for your own ideas. But we're going to choose the one that doesn't include any starting code. We're going to build things completely from scratch. So we're going to click Select Default and click Select. But from this default game, we're going to go ahead and make some changes. The default game is kind of designed to be like a platformer game, like Super Mario. You can kind of see the background here. It looks like something you might see in that kind of game. and we want to change it to be something more like PacMan. I see a question here, Pamela. So for this afternoon to participate in the webinar, you can use the Zoom 42 username and password. Otherwise, you do need to have a subscription. We're offering those free during the COVID-19 crisis. And I think one of my panelists can talk to you about that if you need more information. So, as I was saying, we want to make a kind of a different kind of game. We're going to make like a PacMan game. So we need to make some changes to this default. To do that, we need to come to the Game tab. This is on the right at the bottom. And first thing, pick a different background. None of these are just perfect for a PacMan game. There is the option to upload your own, but to keep things simple, let's just pick this one that looks kind of like a star field. That'll do. And then the other thing we need to change, in a game like Super Mario Brothers that involves jumping up and down, it makes sense for there to be gravity. When we've got gravity in the game world, the game itself handles things going up and down. But for PacMan, or a PacMan-like game, you can move in any direction. There is no gravity. We need to turn that off, or equivalently, just turn gravity down to 0, which is what I'm doing here. The next thing we need to add for a PacMan-like game, PacMan is running around in a maze. We want to create some boundaries to the game world and then add some walls and such. To do that, we're going to use the paintbrush tool, which allows us to add tiles to the screen that act as obstacles. Any of these tiles would work. They all work the same way. They just look different. Since these are supposed to represent walls, I'm going to choose this brick texture. And then just click and drag to draw the walls around the edge of the screen. Do it on all 4 sides. There's one little issue here in that on the upper right corner of the screen where the toolbars actually are, I can't draw here because the toolbar's in the way. There's a way to get around that. So our game world right now is 600 units wide, which is what we want to keep. But if I temporarily make it wider, I can then use this tool, the little crosshairs tool, to shift things over. But now I can use the paintbrush to finish drawing in my world boundaries, then move back, and then set the world width back to 600. Okay. Still, that's a pretty boring maze, so I'm going to go ahead and add some additional walls to it. Actually, paintbrush tool one more time. So I'm going to do this. Do one here. Oops, did not mean to draw it there. I'll fix that in just a second. Use the eraser tool. Now we can make this a little bit more interesting and complex if we wanted to, but just keeping things fairly simple for a beginner game. That's a decent little maze for our guy to run around in. Of course, we don't have a little guy to run around in it yet, but that's coming very soon. But I've been talking for a long time, so let me just pause for a second and see if there are any questions that I can address before we get into actually making a game out of this thing. All right. I'm not seeing any pop up. If any do in the next minute or two, I'll pause and talk about them. So to actually make a game, we need some characters and some goals for those characters to work towards. And in a game like this, the characters are represented by what are called sprites. Sprites are the things on the screen that are active and that do stuff. It could be the main character, it could be the bad guys, it could be goals and power-ups that the main character is trying to grab, anything kind of interactive. So these walls are not considered sprites because they're not interactive, although they do block the most of our characters. But the other things that are interactive are called sprites. So we need to add a sprite to represent our main character. To do that, we go to the Sprites tab, we click plus, and we choose, well, really anything we want. So we've got some, of course, we're CodeMonkey, so we've got a monkey. This was from our Valentine's game. Some food, a tiger, some different animals. For this, I am going to choose the hedgehog for two reasons. One, because hedgehogs are cute, and two, because I've already practiced making this game with a hedgehog, and there's one little thing that it really matters which sprite we choose, and I know that it already works with the hedgehog. So, but if you're making your own game, you can choose whatever you want. They work the same way. They just look different on the screen and are different sizes possibly, and it's because of the size that I'm choosing. Making sure you've got the movement tool here, the selector tool. I can move the hedgehog so he's not standing on a wall. And there we go. Now there's still one little issue with this. And again, I only know this because I've practiced making this game. You can see the hedgehog fits between the walls, but only just barely. We're going to see that when we start moving the hedgehog, when he gets about here, if he stays this size, he's not going to have room to turn and move up and down. We're going to actually have to make the hedgehog into a slightly smaller character. And to do that, we have to start coding. Notice that when we added the hedgehog, we got a screen over here labeled hedgehog. Each sprite has its own code associated with it. So we're going to write right now just one line of code associated with the hedgehog to make it smaller. The code we need to write is set scale. Set scale makes the sprite bigger or smaller. It takes one input, one argument. It's a number. If it's a number bigger than 1, it makes the object bigger. If it's smaller than 1, it makes it smaller. We need the hedgehog to be a little bit smaller, so I'm going to use a number smaller than 1. And again, I only know this because I've practiced with this before. 6/10 is a good number. I'm going to set scale to 6/10. Also want to point out this @ symbol in CoffeeScript, the language that we're using to write this game. @ symbol refers to the object that you're editing. So @ set scale means set scale for the hedgehog. We could, if we had other sprites, run functions that relate to those other sprites. But the @ symbol means this function applies to the hedgehog itself because we're editing the hedgehog's code. So we finally have some code we can run, although it's not going to be that interesting. But we see that when the code runs, it does actually give us the hedgehog and make him a little bit smaller, let him fit between the walls. But that's it for right now. There's no interactivity. It's just look at the hedgehog in the maze. Oh, that's really exciting. But we can do better than that. So we're going to stop the game, and we're going to start to add some more code. Before we do that, I need to talk to you for just a second about event-driven programming. When you write a game, you can't do what maybe you've learned about in computer programming before, where every command goes in order, because you don't know what's going to happen in what order. You don't know whether the player is going to go left or right first, or up or down, or game with jumping, jump. You need to be able to respond to what the player wants the characters to do when the player wants them to do it. So we need to write our code in a different way. What we need to do is respond to events. Events are things that happen either in the game world or inputs that the player sends to the game world to tell what they want to happen. And so we're going to write code that says, when this event happens, do this. When this other event happens, do this other thing. And that way the game will run the right code at the right time. The event we want to respond to control our hedgehog is the onKey event. You go to the Events tab underneath the code window here. There's a button for onKey, which gives us a little snippet of code that'll help us get started writing the function to control our hedgehog. So, onKey is the name of the event. It's going to call this function, and there's a variable here that says this function takes an input. That input represents the keyboard key that was pressed. And they give us an example here of how you can use that to make a decision inside the function. The if statement. If the keyboard key that was pressed is equal to, and you have to use a double equals for this, the right arrow key. Right now it says step 1, which would tell the hedgehog to take 1 step forward. We're actually going to need to change that, because we want to write this so that it controls the hedgehog to go in any of the 4 directions, which means the first thing we need to do when a keyboard key is pressed is face the right direction. So instead of saying step 1, I'm going to use a different function, set rotation 0. Rotation is measured in degrees, and in the convention in Game Builder, 0 degrees is to the right. So if the keyboard key, if the right arrow key is pressed, the hedgehog is going to move right. It's going to face to the right. We hadn't had him move yet. Well, if we want to cover all our bases, we need to consider all 4 possibilities. So if the keyboard key is the left arrow, I'm going to ask you to think. If 0 degrees means go to the right, what degree measure will tell the hedgehog to face to the left? You can answer that in the Q&A box. That would be great. Or in the chat. We have the chat open. Yes, Michelle, good job. 180 degrees. Okay, since 180 degrees is facing the opposite direction. All right, so what about if we want the hedgehog to face down? How many degrees should we rotate? That's correct, 90. This is actually a little bit different than maybe you've encountered in your math class, depending on what grade and what level of math you're doing. Usually in math, we think positive degree measure as counterclockwise, but in Game Builder, a positive degree measure is a clockwise. 90 degrees clockwise goes from right to down. And then, of course, we have to do up. So what would it be for up? And once again, Michelle has it, it's 270. So let me just double check. Sometimes when I'm writing this code, I forget it uses single equals, which makes things work not right at all, but I did use double equals everywhere. I think I spelled everything right. Now, we won't need to do a little bit more than this, because if we left it like this, all that happened is the hedgehog would face in the right direction, but he wouldn't move. So we need one other command, which is at step, let's say 10. And notice that's not underneath an if. So that's going to happen no matter what key was pressed. Okay. So you're going to face in the correct direction and then move a little bit. And as long as you hold down that key, he's going to keep facing that direction. So let's run this code and see. Looky here. Now we can actually control our hedgehog and move him around pretty easily. Notice the walls do block him, but otherwise he can move around freely. So now it's starting to look a little bit like a game, but we probably want to add some kind of goal for our hedgehog to reach for. So again, this is going to be kind of like PacMan. Let's scatter some things around the playing field for the hedgehog to grab. To do that, we're going to need another sprite. So I'm going to open up the add sprite again. And here I'm going to let you guys choose. Probably it should be something, maybe not an animal, but banana or chocolate or one of these other smaller things. But what should our hedgehog's goal be? What sprite should we use as the object of the hedgehog? Anybody have an opinion? Share it in the chat. Personally, I like chocolate, but I'm willing to be flexible. Ooh, donuts. Pineapple. I don't know if hedgehogs like pineapple, but let's assume they do. All right, well, Mark, we've already chosen the pineapple, so I'm going to stick with this for right now. Let's put it down here where it's a little bit of work for the hedgehog to get to. And then let's just see what happens when the hedgehog runs over there. Something, but not much. Notice the hedgehog did not pick up the pineapple. He pushed it a little bit, but he didn't pick it up. That's because the game doesn't know we want the hedgehog to pick up the we're going to have to write some code to make that happen. And our code is going to have to deal with another type of event. So when I was talking about event-driven programming earlier, I said events could be things that the player does, like pressing a keyboard key. They can also be things that happen inside the game, like two sprites colliding with each other. So in order to do that in this game, I'm going to edit the code for the pineapple and add a collision handler to that. So notice right now, code for the hedgehog is still there, but I'm going to be editing the code for the pineapple. What I need here is the onCollide function. And the onCollide function is called when the event is sprite that we're editing collides with another sprite, and we have to give the name of that sprite here. Well, the name of that sprite is hedgehog. We want something to happen when the hedgehog and the pineapple hedgehog run into each other. Hedgehog runs into the pineapple. Well, we're actually going to do a couple things eventually, but at the very least, we want the hedgehog to pick up the pineapple, which means the pineapple needs to disappear. We can do that by calling the destroy function, which does just what it says. It destroys the sprite. And the at is very important here. Remember, at means this sprite, the sprite we're editing. So at destroy means destroy the pineapple, not the hedgehog. Bad if the hedgehog got destroyed when he ate the pineapple. Let's see if that works. We run this and run our hedgehog over here. And this time when he touches the pineapple disappears. Okay, looks more like a game now. Well, sort of. We can still improve on it. Let's stop this. Most games have some kind of scoring mechanisms. Let's add a score that increases when the pineapple. To represent the score, we need a new kind of object for our game, not a sprite, but a widget. In Game Builder, widgets are objects that appear on screen as sort of part of the user interface. So we're going to use a widget called a counter, which just represents a number like a score. So if we add that, notice it shows up on screen. We get a little window where we can change the name. I'm going to change the name from counter to score. Notice also that the counter has its own code window here. And in that code window, there's a little bit of code already. At value, remember at means me, thing I'm editing. So the value of the score widget is equal to 0. Starting score to be 0. Let's, one other thing before we write more code, let's move this score up so it's at the top of the screen. And now to actually have the player earn a score when the pineapple gets picked up, you need to go back to the code for the pineapple, back to sprites, and then select pineapple. And right now we've got one command in this function. We're going to add a new command. Score value. We're not using an at symbol here because we're not affecting pineapple object. We're affecting a different object, the score object. The dot value is the value part of that. And this is going to look a little bit weird, but it's just part of the syntax of CoffeeScript. Plus equals says take a variable and add a number to what's already there. So this command, score.value plus equals, let's say 100, will add 100 points to the score each time that it gets called. So it'll take it from 0 to 100, but if we add more pineapples, each one will add 100 more. So that's all the code we need there. We can just run it and keep your eye on the score when I pick up the pineapple this time.
Hi, Jay. I think you can, I hope you can hear me. We're not able to hear you. But your game is looking amazing. While Jay is figuring his sound out there for a second, I'm going to launch a little quick poll for you guys. See how, just a question about Game Builder. So I hope you'll take a couple of minutes. And we're just going to take this quick poll. And everyone is going to be able to vote. I think
Hear me now?
your sound, yep, we can hear you. Can everybody see the poll? All right. See if a few of you have voted. Panelists are also allowed to vote as well. Ooh, yeah, the game sounds awesome. All right, very awesome. Okay, we're gonna end the poll and then I'm gonna hand it back off to Jay. So here we go.
Okay. So I don't know if we saw there that I did pick up the pineapple and it made a little sound. Let me do that one more time real quick. Or if, how long my sound was out. And then the last thing I want to do here is, I mean, there's a lot more that we could do, but all day long. The last thing I want to do here is, okay, most games like this, you don't just pick up one thing, you pick up lots of things. We're going to add some more pineapples around the screen. And to do that, well, we might have to do these steps all over again, but actually there's a shortcut. We go to Sprites and select our pineapple and click on this little gear here. It lets us edit some things, including the name and some other things about it. We also get this duplicate button, which lets us duplicate the pineapple and any code that goes along with it, which means this new pineapple that I created is going to act just like the old pineapple, including playing a sound and getting destroyed and adding to our score when it gets picked up. Hedgehog. You can add a pineapple every corner. Duplicate several times here. Go off the screen though. There. There. Okay, one more time. Okay. And now I should be able to collect all 5 of those pineapples and they work exactly like the first one we created. points. Another 100 points. 300. 500. Yay! Maximum score. So that's kind of where we're going to stop for today. Now, you could do a lot more with this. You could add enemies to it. You could add other things to collect that worth different amounts of points or gave different power-ups. One version of this game that I created one time had a tunnel that went from one side to the other. All of those are things that you can do to make this into a more exciting game. Now, to be sure, based on what I've taught you so far this afternoon, if you don't have lots of programming experience, game builder already, it might be hard to do all new things on your own. I want to mention 2 tools that you might use to help yourself, and then take any questions that you have. One is right on the screen. These little index card looking things are reference cards that describe all of the programming concepts and functions you can use in Game Builder. OnKey, this describes how OnKey works and gives you an example from to implement your own. The other tool that's available to you is, remember I mentioned that there are 3 courses that go with Game Builder. They walk you through the building of 3 different games step by step. One is a platformer type game like Super Mario. One's a Frogger game. It's a little bit similar to what we've created here. And then one shows you how to do animated sprites. Hedgehog's little feet move when he moves. That animation, create animations like that on your own. So I am going to kind of finish up here and pause or stop for questions. And once we got those wrapped up, we will wrap up the webinar for the afternoon. Are there any questions? We have a pretty small crowd this afternoon, so understand might not be a big pile of questions here, but we'll make sure anybody who has one gets answered.
If not, do you have any questions you could ask Jay?
No, I think he did a pretty amazing job. I was saving the reference card to last, but he also mentioned that, so.
Definitely reference cards are my saving grace. I know that for me.
All right, well, as we're closing up, and again, if you think of a question in the next minute or two, pipe up and I'll answer it. Michelle, absolutely right. Score value minus equals would deduct points from the variable. Exactly correct. Any other questions from viewers? Again, as you're thinking, let me just say a couple closing thoughts. Like I say, I created my game here. The real power of this is you get to create your game. Inspired by this one, you might start with it and try and add some things. You might want to start with your own from scratch. Not at all like this. Different kinds of backgrounds. I suggest, there can be space games or racing games or a Flappy Bird or Flappy Pig type game that people have created. Lots of possibilities of what you can do with Game Builder. So please let your creativity inspire you. But if there are no other questions, I think we're going to wrap things up for the afternoon. I want to thank everybody who participated and asked and answered good questions. And hope you will continue using CodeMonkey products, and that you will join us for any of our future webinars. Any of our panelists have anything to say before we close up shop?
Is there any like info, like how to contact us on your slide deck there?
Yeah, there's email addresses on.
Okay, great. If you guys have any questions regarding anything about the game builder, you can reach out to us at info@codemonkey.com, and be sure to follow us on all of our social channels. We also want to see what you're doing and how you're utilizing remote learning in your classroom. So be sure to tag us so we can share out what you're doing as well with our users. So thank you guys so much. And thank you so much to Jay for hosting. Remember to write code, catch bananas, or in this case, catch pineapples, and save the world. You guys have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye.